Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to talk about Harry Potter and the potential reboot coming up. Joining us today for this fun conversation are two giants inside the Harry Potter fandom. We are joined by Caffeinated Wolfe and Merry Mayhem. Caffeinated Wolfe, how are you today as we get started?
I'm doing fantastic, sir. I am happy to be here, and I am absolutely thrilled to be having this conversation.
And Merry Mayhem, are you ready to enter into the wizarding world?
No one was ever more ready for anything.
Now, in order to segue into this conversation that we need to have, we also need to make sure that people understand why we are having this chat today. And so, what's going on is that recently the internet was a buzz with a conversation about the potential for Harry Potter as a franchise to be rebooted. And yours truly was one of the catalysts of that. There was a source around Warner Brothers Discovery that had let me know that Harry Potter as a franchise was perhaps getting a new designation inside of Warner Brothers Discovery as its own division, potentially called Wizard or the Wizarding Division, and that they were looking for somebody to be in charge of that Harry Potter thing. And the reason they were doing this is because they haven't had tremendous success with all of the stuff that is ancillary to Harry Potter. That is the Fantastic Beasts and all this other stuff. They had huge successes and highs, and they were a cultural phenomenon with the original books by J.K. Rowling and then also the movies. But when they stray from that, when they get away from Hogwarts, they have problems. And so that's a financial issue. And so they have a hard differential between the two segments of this franchise at Warner Brothers Discovery. On one side, you have the original stuff that makes them tons of money and has tons of support. On the other side, well, not so much. But there's an issue. They can't go back to the original things. One, because a lot of the cast from the original movies have aged out of those roles, and to bring them back, you'd have to go into a new frame of time in this universe. But also because doing so is problematic because of the issues between the original author, J.K. Rowling, and the cast from those movies due to issues which we will not discuss here. But if you would like to go out and Google them and see why these people cannot agree with one another, you are free to do so. And so I've invited Caffeinated Wolfe and Merry Mayhem into this today because they're experts on Harry Potter, and I'm just relaying some of the info to all of you about what's coming up, but they can really tell us what's going on inside this fandom, inside this franchise. So let's start off. Wolfe, if you could just tell me real quick, where is the franchise today compared to where it once was? So let's just look back maybe 10 years ago versus today. Where is the franchise and what is the situation?
Well, it's actually a pretty multifaceted question, and Mary actually might be able to offer even more insight on that than I would. That said, the franchise has been, as you mentioned, incredibly successful in the past. And even today, though the movies that they've been putting out, those ancillary films and Fantastic Beasts and whatnot, things that stray from the original stuff, there's still a lot of hype surrounding the franchise. So the importance is maintaining that which the fandom, that which the people who are willing to spend the money on, brought them in the first place, and bringing them back to that place is how you continue to that, or how you reinvigorate, or whatever phrase you want to use, reignite the flames of excitement, because Harry Potter fans are Harry Potter fans for life. They're going to love this thing no matter where it's at in terms of its current success with whatever films they're putting out. You ask any Harry Potter fan, regardless of however the Fantastic Beasts films have done, they still love the franchise. So it's
so Wolfe, you bring up a great point.
Thing.
You repeatedly, I heard you make the phrase Harry Potter fans, Harry Potter fans, Harry Potter fans. And what that was telling me is it calls back to what the problem is with this franchise and why Warner Brothers Discovery is in a position where they need to reboot it. They need to reboot this franchise, but many of the fans are highly reticent to that idea. In fact, if you talk about this opportunity of rebooting it, many of the fans will say it's too soon. It should never happen as long as the cast is alive. Why would you want to do this thing? But what you were saying harkens back to the exact reason why Warner Brothers Discovery is in the position they are. Harry Potter fans, Harry Potter fans, Harry Potter fans. Guess what? It's hard to be a Harry Potter fan when there's no Harry Potter. This is a franchise which is encircled around a singular character, and all the other stuff is really fun and really interesting. And you've got the Hermione fans, and you've got the Ron Weasley fans, and you get the fans of the various schools inside Hogwarts. But it's Harry Potter. And as long as there's no young Harry Potter to bring people back in, then we're living in a world right now where much of that school fantasy kind of fiction is now going to stuff like Wednesday. So, Mary, tell me, what is it that we need to be looking at inside Harry Potter that is successful right now that might be able to be brought into a potential reboot that could pull in some of these fans who are, let's say, hesitant to go along with anything resetting the franchise?
Well, look, I got to be completely honest with you. I acknowledge that there's some hesitation among fans of the movies in terms of the reluctance to want a series reboot. But I think if you look a little closer and if you pay attention inside of the actual circles, the YouTube sphere, you'll notice that there has always been a very vocal amount of people who wanted to embrace the shift from Harry Potter to Wizarding World. And J.K. Rowling made a very deliberate and sincere attempt because the website used to be known as Pottermore originally. And that was where you got all of your articles. If you were looking for your in-depth knowledge of just a greater world expansion beyond just what you could read in the books or see in the movies, Pottermore was where you went to get your extra information, your little tidbits. It's where geeks like me went for years and years and years to just read articles because there was never enough. And yes, we still call it Harry Potter. Old school fans of the franchise still call it Harry Potter because it's what we cut our teeth on, right? Those same people who still call it Harry Potter are not opposed to a Wizarding World shift. And in fact, you will see hundreds of videos on YouTube that talk about theories, things that reference just the little tidbits of lore that have been dropped, the tantalizing pieces that indicate a wider, just immense, deep lore about this entire world. There's so much information out there that Rowling has put together that we truly love, that the movies never did an adequate job. None of them, not even the main movies, that they never did an adequate job presenting to public. And so I think that you will find that fans of the franchise would actually be very, very open to a reboot, mainly because we have a lot of problems with how the movies represented the actual canon or the lore within the books, and that they just don't do a great job in that regard. Now, I acknowledge that there's some reluctance. When I read the books, I see Harry Potter. I see Daniel Radcliffe's face as Harry Potter. The movies were helpful in that regard. And I don't hate the movies. I have great fondness for the movies. But I think that if you do it properly, if you set up a proper prequel and you embrace that Wizarding World approach, that there is a lot of potential moving forward, especially with a reboot. There are lots of fans who take issue with Ron being done a great disservice, Hermione being turned into a Mary Sue. And that's not just banter among people who have one particular persuasion politically. No, this has been banter inside the Harry Potter world, our circles, for literally decades.
So let's review sort of the financial situation and the market situation that is driving this just a little bit more to clarify it for those who may be new to this conversation. Essentially, what we're looking at is we have a franchise where the main line of it that you're discussing, the old school fans, all that stuff that came through in the beginning, the novels, the movies, all of the stuff that's associated with those original characters. These companies put massive amounts of research into all of this because the market is huge. You're talking about one of the biggest franchises in the world. And so what they've done is they've put out years and years of research. And what they've discovered is that the brand loyalty to the original Harry Potter and the brand recognition for all of these characters is through the roof. This other stuff, they keep trying to bring it into the public consciousness, but it hasn't worked. Now, imagine for a moment that you are Warner Brothers Discovery head honcho David Zaslav, and you're trying to raise the value of your company, and you've got this franchise, and half of it simply does not stick with the public in the way that you need it to. And then the other half of it has higher brand loyalty and higher brand recognition with some characters than much of Star Wars. Okay, just to give people an idea of what we're talking about. And yet you're forced to play with this other half of your franchise that isn't getting you anywhere, and you're not allowed to touch the half that would sell like hotcakes and lift your entire company. Because what you're trying to do if you're David Zaslav is you're trying to reset both DC and Harry Potter. So, Mary, let me go to you one more time, and let me ask you this. What is, in your opinion, at least one solution to try to reboot this franchise in a way that would be palatable to those fans who don't want to see these characters recast anyway? Because when we talk about a reboot, it doesn't have to be a traditional reboot. They just have to get back to having young Harry, because young Harry sells. Young Harry makes money, and this other stuff isn't. So what say you on that? How do they get back in a way that keeps as many fans as possible?
Well, there are two things that are going to be essential if you want a successful reboot of the series. First is a proper prequel setup. I saw someone on Twitter the other day say, call it The Order. I love that name. That would be perfect. And you set up the proper predecessor. The best kept secret about the Harry Potter franchise among the movie fans is that everybody thinks Harry took after his dad and that his dad was the hero of the previous generation. No, it was Lily. Lily was the hero. So call it The Order and make her your main protagonist and show the world what it was Lily left for her son, because it was her sacrifice that ultimately saved the entire wizarding world. You lead right into that reboot, and then you turn that reboot not into a series of movies, because just like there was no way they were going to properly fit the Game of Thrones books into movies, you have to make it a TV series to do it justice. And you turn that into a 10-episode, hour-long episode for each book, for each season, and you do 7 seasons. So you start off with a prequel, call it The Order or something snazzy like that. Make Lily your main protagonist, end it with her death as she shields Harry and she imparts on him an ancient magic that instills in him a blessing and essentially a curse as well that Harry learns how to cope with. And then you have Harry as a baby, and then you go forward with him from there. You pick it up at what she left him, the life that she left him, and you move forward from there, and you make that a TV series, and you give yourself a few years. You make Lily the right age. She's 21 when she dies. It was an incredibly heroic death, and it was a death that she had a choice over, and she chose to die to protect her son. You let her be the hero of that story, because Lily's an amazing witch. She's also a Muggle born. You let her lead you into Harry's retelling and reboot, and then you have everyone right on the edge of their seats because they want to see what it is Lily gave us. And then you let Harry unfold that story, learning, all these years I thought my dad was the one that I took after, but it was really my mom. And you let him understand. You let him go from understanding or believing that his dad was the heroic one, into discovering that it was really his mother all along.
Well, if the passion that you have for this would come through into whatever they were to produce around this story, I think that would be highly successful. Now, Wolfe, what we've been watching in the background on this video, and it's purposeful, is the upcoming video game that deals with some of this long ago lore inside of the Potterverse, let's say. And so just like Mary is talking about going back in time and doing a prequel series, this video game is coming out, and it's all centered around Hogwarts, but it's not from the time span of the original books. It's far back in the past. Yet this is still, it's engendering huge amounts of enthusiasm. In fact, according to some of the latest reports we're seeing, the Hogwarts Legacy video game coming out in, February, right? Is that correct, Wolfe?
Correct. February 10th for the standard edition, February 7th for people who get the deluxe or the collectors.
So this is one of the most highly anticipated video games of 2023, which I think is incredible. starting back into this world that, it's been a little bit dwindled in terms of enthusiasm. So what do you think is inside this game, inside this older lore, this past of the franchise that has people so excited once again?
Well, this game is doing a lot of really key things that highlights a lot of both great things and issues within modern day fandoms, or how they're handled. Um, for a quick background, I worked at kind of an ancillary position to the video game industry for over a decade, and in those positions that I worked, I was able to see back end numbers in terms of sales, pre-order sales when it came to upcoming video games, which gives you a general idea of the level of interest for something. And that's highlighted further. It's really augmented when it has to deal with a licensed property. So something that's based off of an IP, an existing IP, say whether it's Marvel or DC, Star Wars and whatnot. And you can gauge the, quite accurately so actually, you can gauge the level of interest in said video game based on how quickly the higher dollar amount editions of said video games sell. Now, the collector's edition for this game was $300 American. It sold out. It sold
Wow.
out in minutes across every platform, across all retailers.
What is included in that? What is included in it that's worth $300?
Well, you got your game. You get some exclusive digital content. You get early access to the game, so 72-hour early access. You get on the 7th of February instead of the 10th. But it also comes with this really cool kind of replica diode of a spell book that has a floating replica ancient magic wand.
Okay, pause there for just a minute, Wolfe. Pause for just a minute, because we need to explain something to the audience and why I'm so taken aback by that. The reason is because if you are inside of the promotional and merchandising industry, you will know that the way to gauge consumer enthusiasm is broken down into different tiers. And one of the biggest ways that you can tell that someone is a huge fan of any property, of course, is that they've actually tattooed it to their body. Okay, that's the highest tier of brand loyalty. But coming down from that, spending $300 on a collector's edition of a video game, that ranks way up there in terms of enthusiasm. And so if that sold out as quickly as you're saying it did, then you can definitely see why Warner Brothers is looking at their situation and saying, we have pent-up demand like you wouldn't believe. We have got to get back to this. Continue on with your point. I apologize, but we needed to pause there to explain why that's so significant from a financial and economic standpoint.
No, absolutely. I'm glad you piggybacked off of that. To take that a step further, fans, this shows how hungry fans are. Harry Potter fans are hungry for more content set within the wizarding world, set specifically within Hogwarts. Hogwarts is key because that's where everything stems from. That's where Rowling began this journey with everyone. That's what everything spawned from, was the books where we get introduced to Hogwarts. People are proud of their houses when they do their official wizardingworld.com sortings. They're very attached. It's very personal. And this video game is doing something that is every Harry Potter fan's dream, which is you are getting to live out your own legacy within the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. You can even tie your WB Video Games account to your official Harry Potter Wizarding World account so that your wand from that website and your house carry over into the game. This is a game that is being made very clearly by fans for fans.
And if I may interject and piggyback off of that right there, just a quick aside. It was actually a conversation that Wolfe and I actually had, not just he and I, but several other members of the Harry Potter community literally discussed that aspect of how amazing it would be if we could port in our wizarding profiles, bring along with us our house, our wand, our Patronus, all of the things that make us feel like a distinct individual within this universe. And lo and behold, it manifests, and the Potterheads across the world collectively lost their minds.
Absolutely. And so there's a lot to be said for the level of hype that you're seeing out of true blue Harry Potter fans for this. It's the attention to detail. Every single time they do a new gameplay reveal and they're showing off, they're being very careful with what they're allowing people to see.
Yeah.
But the things they are allowing us to see, those of us who know what we're talking about, those of us that are familiar with this world, we're able to pick out little details, and it's kind of mind-boggling the level of detail that they're paying attention to this. They're utilizing Rowling's actual lore that she set up. They actually have on the dev team, they have dedicated lore experts that are in constant contact with Rowling's own lore team. And so we know that what we're seeing here has been approved by the creator herself, basically. And so we're seeing
it's an authenticity. It's an authenticity that's being brought into this product.
Absolutely. And that's something you don't often see these days.
Well, you know, the latest thing with all these franchises is that you get some young upstart who has the hubris to think that they're better than the franchise that they've just taken control of, and that they're going to modify it and they're going to retrofit it to their own beliefs and their own ideologies and then sell that back out. So yes, it is refreshing to see a product coming out that actually says, hey, this is successful for a reason and we're going to honor it. Absolutely.
1000%. And that level of authenticity is going to be the reason why this game is going to more than likely, provided that it doesn't release in a unfinished, buggy state, which these days always seems to be a possibility, provided that's not the case, it's probably going to end up being a Game of the Year contender. It is already shaping up to be a bestseller for this year. I think the PS5 Deluxe Edition, which is $80, is the #1 selling game on Amazon. And
well,
so,
one reason to have some hope there is that, according to my sources, this game is being used as a barometer for the company to determine the direction of the Harry Potter franchise. So, you know, that's big news, by the way, for anybody who's not heard that before. But so I'm optimistic that they'll be able to produce this at the level they need to, and it's not going to be one of those live service things where you slowly get patches to try to fix it. Hopefully it's not a Master Chief Collection kind of situation again. Nobody enjoys those things.
It doesn't appear to be the case, and having, again, worked in an ancillary position in the video game industry for so long, I've seen time and time again games release in an unfinished, buggy state wherein they're relying on day one or week one, sometimes month one, or 3 months down the line patches to actually make the game look and function how it should have on day one. This, so far from what I've seen, isn't something that I'm concerned about with this game, and I hope that that's not unfounded.
All right, Mary, back to you now. Let's pretend for a moment that somehow they can patch things up well enough that they could actually go back and get the original cast from the movies. And let me insert just a little rumor here, by the way. I am told that one of the reasons that they are keen to have a wizarding division at Warner Brothers and have somebody be over that in sort of a Kevin Feige-esque sort of role where they're now switching this from being project to project to having an overarching map to everything and interconnectivity to all of it. One of the reasons they're interested in that is because if you have somebody in charge of that division, they can act as a buffer to block some of the criticisms from the cast to Rowling and vice versa, because the cast, they can say, oh, well, I am reporting to this individual at the top of this division, not to her. I have nothing to do with her. And then she can report to that person and be, you know, sort of as a proxy, right? That person can be the proxy for her control over it continuing. But so putting that aside, let's imagine a future where somehow we can get the Daniel Radcliffes and the Emma Watsons back on board. Tell me, what would Warner Brothers Discovery, what is one of the best options that they would have going forward if they wanted to tell an adult, and I don't mean that in a risque way, but I mean a grown-up Harry Potter story? Where would they need to go with that?
So there's only one route forward currently in regards to an adult established Harry Potter cast, and that's Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And it is universally rejected by fans on every front.
And tell us why real quick. Tell us why fans reject that.
It's rejected because it takes Harry Potter's happy ending and turns it into a convoluted, time turner ridden mess. If you haven't seen,
He gets Han
Harry Potter.
Soloed, is what you're telling me. They Han
Oh, it's
Solo him.
absurd. It's completely absurd. Imagine Harry Potter looking at his child that he loved so much. He named Albus.
Wait a minute. I've seen
And-
this before. Does the child stab him and throw him off a bridge? I'm getting this now.
He stabs him in the heart, and Harry turns
Oh my
around and
gosh.
stabs him right back. Not in the heart, not literally, but it's
Okay,
a
in the
metaphorical.
liver. Okay.
They
Metaphor.
tell each
Sorry.
other. They tell each other that they hate each other and that they wish they weren't related. And Albus looks at his father and says, "I hate being your child. I hate being your son. I wish you'd never had me." And he goes, "Sometimes I wish the same thing too." That is what we have to look forward to from an adult cast. It's universally rejected. It's a time
We
turner
had that
mess.
with Rocky, but at least Sylvester Stallone had a great speech to his bratty adult son there. So maybe that doesn't happen in the Cursed Child.
It's a bizarre trip down an alternate dimension lane where Lord Voldemort's love child, even though the man can't feel love, with Bellatrix Lestrange, comes back, and they find 2 time turners. All of the time turners have been destroyed in book 5, but here magically are 2 time turners, and they show up for this convoluted reason. And then Cedric Diggory comes back to life, and he's a Death Eater. It's bizarre and insane.
But
and
now,
as I said,
is this a story that was originated through J.K. Rowling, though?
No, it was approved by her. It's a play, and the only format through which you can watch it, or you can really absorb it anymore. It's not on Broadway anymore. But you can read the script. You can buy Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. It's not formatted like a book. It's formatted like a script. It's a very bizarre read.
Would you imagine then that they might do something else if they were to come to
if they want fans to accept it? It would have to be something else. But I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people love the Golden Trio, is what they're referred to, Harry, Ron, and Hermione. They love Rupert, Dan, and Emma for the years that they spent growing up with them, but we all also recognize they're just not that talented. And I don't say that to be mean. The most talented of the bunch is Emma Watson. She was the only one who went on to do anything truly substantial.
Are you dismissing the Weird Al story? Are you dismissing that, Mary?
No, I just think that you will find that most fans, while they hold a great place in their hearts for the nostalgia that those actors represent, and that certainly we would love to tune in to see them on maybe quiz shows and things like that. As far as taking their performances further, they don't. On rewatches of the movies that you watched when you were a kid, you see a lot of the glaring flaws of the kids that the adult actors, Alan Rickman and just Maggie Smith and all of these amazing, brilliant actors did their best to work with, and they got better as they got older, but they truly never became particularly dazzling actors. And so I don't know that anybody feels the need for them to return, especially when the only thing that exists for them to return to is the Cursed Child, and that's universally rejected. No one likes the Cursed Child. No one likes it.
All right, Mary, so let's do this thought experiment then. So you've got Warner Brothers Discovery. They're trying to raise the value of their company. They recognize that young Harry Potter, young Hermione, young Ron, all of that is highly coveted across the marketplace. The issue there is that in order to give that to fans in live action, but even if you were to do animated, you still are going to have different voice actors. But if you do it in live action, they have to be recast. So
Yes.
Do you, understanding that this is a business situation, do you believe that the fans would accept a recasting of these characters under any circumstances? And if so, what's the best way? If you were advising David Zaslav today, what would you tell him is the best way to go about without alienating too many fans?
Absolutely. Well, look, the biggest complaint is it's too soon, right? And I don't personally agree with that take. Personally, we just had a 10-year anniversary from the ending of the series, and but the biggest complaint is it's too soon. So okay, you give people that gap. You begin working and you run them simultaneous, okay, because you're going to have a hard time with the aging aspect of the kids. So you shoot them simultaneously. The prequel. Prime people with a prequel. You give them that time, give them a few more years, and you prime them with the prequel where you set everyone back up, okay? And you remind them of what they loved about Hogwarts, and you give them that time, and then you draw them back in slowly, okay? You promise them what we've always truly wanted, which is authenticity, okay? Those movies, as much as they're loved, they missed a lot, and there are lots of things that the book fans would give their right arm to see properly represented in a new reboot. And so you give us some time. Go ahead, take a few more years. Give us a prequel. Prime people and draw them back in slowly with a well-crafted, loving tribute to the characters that needed to exist before Harry could ever come to be in front of us. And you prime them and you give them that loving, well-crafted, just lovingly detailed prequel. And then people will find themselves in the same position that they found themselves in time after time after time with the Fantastic Beasts movies. You burnt us over and over again with these movies. And the Harry Potter fans, we still showed up.
If I might
Dobby
interject,
loves Harry Potter. Dobby needs authenticity with Harry Potter.
if I might interject really quickly here, something important.
Break up that horrible impression quickly. Go.
I'm doing my best.
Don't let him do it again.
Really quick, an important thing here. We see reboots happen all the time. We see recastings happen all the time. And ultimately, what fans care about when it comes to an established property, especially with regards to an adapted established property. So this is, first and foremost, Harry Potter was books, right? So what fans fell in love with were the characters in the books.
Yes.
So as long as you're giving people those characters on the screen, it doesn't matter as much who's playing them. You can recast them. As long as you recast them well, fans are going to show up. So what you do by properly adapting a prequel setting like Mary set up earlier, and then doing a sort of 7-season, 10 episode per season series for each book, you can reinvigorate that love in the fans that were already here. Because here's the thing. One of the issues, actually, there are a lot of them, with the Fantastic Beasts is the Fantastic Beasts movies weren't bringing in any new fans. No. Because there wasn't enough there to bring in new fans. There wasn't enough interesting about them. The people that did enjoy things about them were primarily already fans that were already here, because we were seeing little Easter eggs here and there, at least in the first movie, which was good. The other two, not so much. But what I'm saying is there was not enough to work with there to grow your fan base. And so what you need to do is you need to go back to basics, retell that, or rather readapt that story of the Golden Trio through the Harry Potter books, through a limited series. And that story is what made people fans in the first place. So now you can reintroduce a whole new generation. What Mary just said, we just had the decade anniversary of the last movie of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Yeah, it's been longer than people realize.
Yeah, people don't realize how long it's
22
been.
22 years since the first movie.
Exactly.
And if you think about it, think about Spider-Man, think about Ninja Turtles, think about any number of franchises. How many reiterations, rebirthings of those franchises have occurred since the very first Harry Potter movie came out 22 years ago? And that's how you start to begin to realize why Warner Brothers needs to keep this thing refreshed, because otherwise what you wind up with is a Harry Potter franchise that's sort of like Back to the Future, where it exists and there's very small levels of merchandise, maybe T-shirts, maybe some high-level action figures that
merch still sells, though.
That's right.
But Harry Potter merch sells like hotcakes.
Compare Harry Potter now, or compare Back to the Future to some of those franchises that are kept alive, and we call them evergreen properties, where they want to. Warner Brothers would ideally like to have Harry Potter fill a very large portion of the toy aisle at a big box retailer, right? But
Mhm.
you can't do that if it's always stuck in movies that are 10, 22 years ago.
Well, look, you have an entire generation of Star Wars fans that became Star Wars fans from the prequels. Okay. And we like to give it a lot of crap. You know, a lot of people say a lot of things about the prequels.
Not
Oh,
after the
it's too
sequels.
CGI.
Not after the sequels. They
Not
got
so much after the
they got a
sequels.
mulligan.
We learned. We understood that we could be very,
Perspective.
very wrong. But there's a very substantial sect of the Star Wars fan base that came in and became fans of Obi-Wan Kenobi because he was just so dang cool, and who became fans of Anakin, and girls who loved Padme. And Lord love it, man, the Clone Wars as well spawned an entire generation or an entire sect of the Star Wars fan base. So you can't tell me that a prequel can't do that job and do it well. Okay. If you do it well, and if you pay attention, and if you put as much love into it as I know there is established in this community, fanatics still 22 years later. I read the books as a little girl before the movies were a thing. That love is rampant among people. So yes, you can absolutely start with a prequel and then reboot it. And I don't think you will have as many people opposed to a reboot of the hair. Go online, go on YouTube, look up on YouTube, Ron Done Dirty. Okay. You will find countless videos by Harry Potter fans who would love to see Ron get another whack at it, because the Ron you guys see in those movies, that's not Ron. That's not Ron. There are plenty of people who are fans of this who would love to see these characters get another chance at actually being who they are. And
You know, Mary,
fans will get behind that.
You make a great point too, because if you do a prequel, it's less dangerous than continuing the timeline, because look at Star Wars.
Absolutely.
They did the sequel trilogy. They put those characters that people love into positions that people don't love. And it destroyed the enthusiasm then, because nobody wanted to watch their heroes succeed only to become failures later on. So there is a danger in continuing the narrative past a point that people are satisfied with. That's a great point. Well, we need to wrap this up. Yeah. But we need to wrap this up. YouTube doesn't like it if we go too long, and we are a brand new channel. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure to click the like and subscribe button. Share it out. We're trying to grow this thing, and this is the kind of content we want to bring to you. We love to bring to you. We want to explain why entertainment works the way it does, because if you understand the entertainment industry, then you begin to understand the culture, because people watch what they want to watch, it turns out. And when they're going to think about things and hope to watch things and hope to go to certain places, then you begin to understand what people truly are driven by. And that's important. Caffeinated Wolf, tell us where we can find you out there on this thing they're calling the internet now.
These days, this newfangled gadget that we're fooling around on.
Newfangled dangled internet.
There's a whole lot of nonsense on it, but you can find me skirting around there on the fringes, primarily over on Twitch, where I do a lot of video gaming. Caffeinated Wolf, simple as that over there. I also am the social media manager.
What game are you playing right now, Wolf?
Primarily playing Elden Ring, which is a game that loves to kick everybody's butt and laugh at them.
Gotcha. Well, it'll be easy to segue from that to Hogwarts Legacy.
Yes.
And Mary, tell us where we can find you.
Well, hi guys, I am Merry B, Mistress of Mayhem, disruptor of the narrative, and official Whammon card holder. You can find me over on my channel, Merry Mayhem, here on YouTube. You can also find me over on Twitch by the same name. You can also find me over on Twitter, where I'm hanging out over there, and I'm dropping a lot of Harry Potter truth bombs all over the place. And so I'm really looking forward to this release, and I'm really looking forward to engaging with everybody in the dialogue that is bound to erupt as soon as this game explodes onto the scene. This is going to be a lot of fun.
And make sure to check the description down below the video. You will have links for all of the contact information for you to find these personalities and go support them. Once again, this is WDW Pro. You can find me on Twitter at WDWPro1. And you can also find me this Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central Time with Valiant Renegade on the Renegade Online Show. And I hear rumor that there may be a celebration video on the WDW Pro channel coming out after that, celebrating this fantastic launch. So we'll see you there. And ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing you take away from this, keep having